Yo, what's going on today, guys? It is Sam, better known as Samito here. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is definitely one of the most anticipated videos I've had on my channel. It is the Advanced Echo Guide Part 1, okay? In this guide, you are going to learn everything you need to about Echo mid-fight and how you can succeed as somebody who wants to learn Echo and grind the character. If you guys want the next part of the guide to drop, which will cover everything you can do with her ultimate, that will drop at 100K subs on this channel. So tell your friends, make sure you hit that sub button. The footage from this is from my stream, which is at 11 a.m. EST every day on this YouTube channel. I did hit rank 1 on Overbuff for all GM players on Echo. That was really cool, and I did hit rank 25 North America playing Echo. So that's kind of my credentials for giving you tips about the character. Am I the best Echo in the world? Absolutely not, right? There's always somebody better than you out there, but I am credible enough to teach you guys. So I hope you enjoy the video. Let's get right into it. To start this off, we're gonna go over the basics of assassination techniques before we get into the more advanced parts, because the advanced parts won't work if you don't know the basics. So let's start with the basics of Echo's damage. Your main goal as an Echo player should be to set up your focusing beam to finish off targets. A quick unknown tip about the focusing beam, you don't actually need a target to be at 50% HP for you to use it. You actually can use the beam when they get to 75% HP and it'll be enough to kill a squishy. So if you look at this guy, I've got him down to 75% health. I use the beam, and because it lasts so long, that's more than enough to finish him off. I'm gonna play a few clips on screen right now of me dueling especially other Echoes and squishy DPS heroes, where I only get them down to about 75% HP. And again, in the Echo 1v1s, you need to use that focusing beam as early as possible if you wanna win the fight. The threshold for it being 75% health on a squishy target. Sorry, Dad. Echo dies here. Echo dead.
Mercy. Wait, I can't touch. Fuck.
Mercy, touch.
Touch.
I'm gonna take. Nice. Watch the Echo.
Echo dead. Mercy 1, or Mercy's half. Let's see, can I blindside this guy? Mercy's low. Can we go? Mercy, top right. Mercy dead. I'm not dead. Where's Soldier? Soldier on point, low. Dead. Echo.
Zarya.
Nice job, guys. As you can see, for the procedure of it, I either poke someone down with my left click primary fire or my sticky bombs, which is my secondary ability. If you land enough of the primary fire or enough of the sticky bombs, that's when you want to use your left shift, your fly, in tandem with your focusing beam. It'll look something like this. You use them, finish somebody off with the beam, and then that's an assassination. You want to save enough time left on your fly to kite back into your team, right? So I use this, I'm using this beam, and I'm kiting back already so that I can land back with my supports, especially if I don't have a Mercy, which I will talk about later in the guide. Those are the basics when it comes to assassinating squishies. I briefly want to make a comment on tanks. Your goal when you're fighting tanks is to force their sustain cooldowns or to pressure their shield in like Reinhardt's case. Your damage cooldowns will generally come back faster than the tank's sustain cooldowns. So after you force the tank's cooldowns, you want to use that focusing beam. But the tricky thing is with tanks is you need them to be lower HP than 75% to get the max value from the beam. When going against a tank or a barrier, you want that to always be 50% before you use the beam. So for squishies, the threshold is 75%. For tanks, it's 50 when they don't have resources on their cooldowns. One last thing before we get into the advanced assassination techniques, you need to establish a rhythm with Echo's cooldowns, right? Like Doomfist, you do not want to use all 3 and end up in the middle of their team with no escape. One thing I recommend doing is using your shift to get to a high ground closer to the enemies without putting yourself at risk. You'll see me do that on Numbani, where I can fly up to that high ground when their team is holding top right on the first point offense without being at risk. That way the distance is already closed between me and the targets I have to fly to, so I can get more out of my fly. So when going in, it's gonna look something like this. We'll wait for this guy to come back in 3, 2, 1. I use my cooldowns on him, I fly up, focus beam, but as you notice, I still had 2 seconds on my fly left, right? Meaning I could come back and land in my team. You go in forward with the first 2 seconds and use the last 2 seconds to kite back safely to your team or to a high ground where they can't catch you.
Yo. What's good, Sammy?
Yo, what's up, bro? I'm recording a guide. You got anything to say about Echo?
That hero's f***ing busted.
When it comes to advanced assassination techniques, there's a couple things that I'd like to talk about first. One, make sure you apply the basic principles of assassinating a target with Echo that we just talked about, or else this just won't work at all. The first advanced technique I'd like to talk about is what I'm gonna call the vertical LOS break assassination, where essentially your goal is to break a target's line of sight, use your fly to go way up in the sky above them, and drop on them with your cooldowns. This works really well on maps like Rialto, Dorado, Hollywood, any map that has a very high vantage point for you to fly up to and break someone's LOS. I'm gonna play a few clips on screen right now of me doing this to players just to give you a grasp of how it works. And again, it works very well in low ranks where most players who play squishy heroes have a little bit less awareness than higher ranks. Oh, she's 1 HP. Oh my, that was clean. So to reiterate, the vertical LOS break assassination, when their DPS or squishies are coming up this way, you're gonna use your fly to go really high up in the air, cancel it, and wait as long as you can so the fly comes back quickly, then drop on them when they can't see, use your sticky bombs, and do the basic assassination technique. The next advanced assassination technique I'd like to talk about, I will say has an expert difficulty. It's very situational. It's called the rooftop rollout assassination, and it's very similar to Doomfist, right? I'm gonna play a clip on screen right now of what it should look like, just to give you guys a good idea of what to do.
There is a bolstering.
Alright, I have a play.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
I'm coming!
Here it goes.
Big Slim! Oh my god, it's actually enough!
Double shatter! Dude, what?
That is
What a shatter.
That's incredible.
This character's so much fun.
This one is definitely much more difficult because there's way more things to learn and do for it to work. Make sure you're canceling your flight and gliding out of it, or else you won't get the forward velocity, right? So I'm gliding out now, so I get the velocity, and I stall. What makes it good is you can get your flight back by the time you hit the ground, so you have your next flight to get out. Let's talk a little bit about how to play Echo without a Mercy, right? Now, generally, these assassination techniques are really good when you have a Mercy because you can play much more aggressively, right? But with hitscan heroes like Widow and McCree being unbanned next week, it's gonna be really hard to get value from Echo against them, right? So you're gonna have to change your playstyle, especially if you don't have the Mercy. The best way to play Echo without a Mercy is to play close enough to where you can fly back to your supports. What you're gonna wanna do is look for off angles and focus beams on shields as much as you can in these fights. When you have the Mercy, that's when you wanna be more aggressive with high grounds and stuff, right? You need to get your Mercy in the sky and be poking from angles where they can't shield. Use your flight actively to hug buildings, like especially on Dorado. Those are like Echo's best maps where there are buildings that you can take cover behind with your flight. With Mercy, you're gonna wanna be actively using your fly to apply pressures and take duels with squishy heroes and pressure tanks from long range with your primary fire and your focus beam. Sorry, I mean sticky bombs through chokes, not focus beam. However, without the Mercy, you can't really do any of those things. It's super easy for you to die and it puts too much pressure on their support. So how do you wanna play Echo without a Mercy? There are two styles of play. You can play for a value on the front line and just be breaking shields. If you're playing to break shields, it's really important. You want to spam your right click and your primary fire as much as you can to get that shield to half HP, and then you want to continuously use your focusing beam on it. I don't advise doing this 24/7 because there are other heroes that are better for shield break in my opinion, but it's still one thing you can do. After you've broken their shields, you want to go for what's called an off angle, right? In this case, let's say we're defending Dorado A. Their team is pushing through this choke, my team is holding here. What you're gonna wanna do is, you're gonna wanna walk over here while saving your fly to spam them from the side. So the Reinhardt has to make a choice, right? He has to either shield your team or you. And that puts a lot of pressure on his resources, right? Then, if they push you with like a McCree or something, you can still successfully fly back to your team safely and get healed by your supports. That's how you play on shields and on off angles as Echo if you don't have a Mercy. I'm not saying you can't go for assassination techniques without a Mercy, you still should actively try to do it. Just understand that it's much riskier before you do it. I'd recommend going for rooftop rollouts, kind of like this, where if they're coming through the choke, by the time you land, you'll already have your flight right back to get to your team. So they don't see you here, boom, and then you're out again, right? And maybe you've gotten a squishy and you just permanently stall on these roofs. Make sure you guys click on the screen right now to see more advanced Echo gameplay and see how all these ideas are put better into practice. Leave a like down below if you learned something, and leave a comment if you had any questions, concerns, or if you want to see me cover a different part of Echo in the next guide. Thanks so much for watching, and make sure to watch the next video. Click on screen now.